Hello, I'm Rachel from Douentza Garden in Ireland, and it's, I suppose you might call it early spring. So it's the middle of March now, and there's a lot of pruning to do in the garden. Now, I was away, so I didn't get the chance to do the pruning piecemeal from February on. I'm back now and I'm going to do the whole lot together. So I thought you might just join me and see what needs to be done, what needs to be pruned in my garden at this time of year. And before we get on with the video, I have my trusty loppers here at my side. Just a couple of preambles to let you know that I garden in Southern Ireland in what roughly equates as hardiness zone 9, so very much the temperate zone, and the jobs that I'm doing in my garden are applicable to that zone. Also, it's worth noting that there are many trees and shrubs that you should prune in early spring that I don't happen to have in my garden, so I can't demonstrate those to you. We're only going to be dealing with what I can demonstrate. And to kick off, we're going to deal with the Paulownia tree, which is that very sad and spindly looking thing over there, because it definitely needs a prune. So today I am going to be pollarding this Paulownia tree. Now, conventionally Paulownia trees are coppiced. That means they're cut to the ground, but I pollard this, which means I cut it off once and forever after, the branches that come out from that point, I'm cutting them to the base. And I do have a video about pruning Paulownia trees and why we do it, which is to get the enormous leaves. If you prune your Paulownia tree, you're never going to get flowers, but you will get enormous leaves, and that's what I'm all about. So I'm going to try and cut these now. I didn't do it last year, so these are quite thick. Normally, it's very easy to cut Paulownia because it has hollow stems, but because I've left this a bit long, I think it's going to be a bit of a job. And I think I might need to get a bit of a saw to this, because it's not responding well to the loppers. Okay, and if you ever do that, so you've made a cut in your trunk and you can't get through, then make sure that when you come back and cut it with something that's strong enough, that you do cut through the same point, because that kind of injury is not something you should leave on a tree. We want straight, flat cuts. The next shrub to consider pruning is the Forsythia, and many people have these in their garden. If you acquired a garden, no doubt there's a Forsythia and a ribes in there somewhere. Well, it's a beautiful shrub because it flowers in February and March with its sunny yellow colour when there's very little else about. You should not prune your Forsythia now. Wait until the flowers has passed and then you can cut it. But do bear in mind that it's a shrub that likes to have an arching habit. So you're not going to be successful if you try and prune it into a kind of neat topiary shape. I guess pretty much like I'm doing here. It does much prefer to have a graceful arching habit. This sorry looking shrub over here is Melianthus major. I would say it's borderline in my zone. So in mild winters it keeps its branches and looks quite good and gets quite tall by summer. But in harsher winters like last winter, it looks very, very sad in spring. So the job you have to do here is to cut these old branches to the ground and wait for the new shoots to pop up and get going. Now, you will have to wait longer than you would have had to if you had just been able to leave the existing branches in situ. If some of the leaves look a bit tatty, then you can just remove those and leave the branches in place. But that's not what we're doing here. We're cutting right back to the base. And it's a super shrub with almost blue-like foliage that smells of peanut butter. Woo. And of course, hydrangeas need pruning too. Now, hydrangeas are best pruned in February, and I wasn't here so I couldn't do it, so I'm going to do it now. And this is a Hydrangea macrophylla. There are different types of hydrangeas which I cover in my separate video, and they need to be pruned differently. But with the macrophylla, it's a very, very easy operation. It's basically deadheading. So the spent flowers from last year, you cut down to a pair of healthy buds, and well, you should try and get them in the trug, otherwise these things, they just blow all over the garden. Okay, so in theory that's all you have to do with the hydrangea, but it can be that sometimes they get quite congested. So if you've got an old bush in your garden and it's been growing for several years and you've been pruning like this every year, then it can be that it gets quite congested in the centre and begins to flop. And a bit of rejuvenating pruning does no harm. So what I intend to do here is to remove a third of the main branches, cut them right down to the base, and that will help the plant just have more room to expand. Also, I notice with this one that there are some outer branches that are facing down, so I will clip them off as well, because I don't want my hydrangea flopping down over the other plants that are going to spring up in this border. Now this is a nice fat branch, a good candidate for removal because it's sticking out at an awkward angle as well. So cut it right down to the base. And this one seems to be kind of poking out at a jaunty angle. Also, there's a lot of crossing, so I'm going to take that one out right at the base. Now, when I say remove a third of the branches, I mean remove up to a third. And I don't think I need to take a lot more off of this shrub. Maybe that one here that's sticking out at an angle. And I'll take off some of the little wimpy ones that are not doing a whole lot of good. There you go. And it's time to prune my Cotinus, or smoke bush. Now, those of you who follow me will have seen that last year I pollarded my smoke bushes for the first time. This is a procedure that if you do it, you're not going to get those lovely smoky flowers, but you will get larger leaves, and that's what I'm after here. So I pollarded the smoke bush, the Cotinus, last year, and now the job this year is just like the Paulownia. I'm going to leave the central stem intact, and the branches that sprouted out from the side of it, I'm just going to cut them back as low as I can. Now, there are some kind of water shoots coming out of the Cotinus. Perhaps that's because I pruned it just a little bit too late last year, a bit like I'm doing this year. But anyway, it's going to produce large leaves, and that's why I'm pruning it. And now we have Buddleia, or the butterfly bush, and this is a very vigorous bush that can get really big. Now, if you want, in February you can cut this to the ground and it will re-sprout and regrow. I assure you, I've told this to my neighbour and he doesn't believe me, but it will regrow. However, we're in March now and I don't want that length of time before the bush comes back. So I want to not cut it to the ground, but just give it a bit of rejuvenating pruning. Certainly I'm going to reduce it by maybe about a half of its height because it's really, really high. But I'm also going to take out some of the larger branches because they're kind of getting out of hand. Now I'm definitely going to need a power tool for this. So you can see here that this branch, well, I definitely didn't cut this to the ground last February. I don't usually do it, but you can. And if I had been here in February, I might have taken the opportunity to just completely rejuvenate this and take it down. But this branch is really, really big, and I do want to cut it. However, it is going to fall, and it's probably going to fall on you over there. So I'm going to get my husband to grab it as I cut it. We nearly had an accident there with the Paulownia. Okay, so thank you. Okay, well saved. Now let's see what we're going to do with this. I think I might just take this one out as well. Bad angle. Here, let's try it this way. Maybe you could push it up, Norman, a bit there. Now, if you prune your Buddleia to the ground every year, you won't have to deal with power tools, because you'll be able to just do it with the loppers and do it quite easily. But this has gotten a bit out of hand. I'm going to take off, I think, also this one with the power tool. So when cutting, you should cut back to some shoots, so to some shoots here, and however, these spindly branches I think I'm just going to take out. In this case here, I want to cut quite low down. There are no shoots, but there are little knobbly bits here, and I know that the bush is going to sprout from there, so I will take that out there. I'm going to remove these spindly branches because they can't even hold themselves up. Any that are kind of crossing over the center of the plant, I'll take out. Take out this here. And we've a bad crossing situation there at the back, so I'm probably going to take out one of those branches. And now we come to Sambucus, or elder, and this is a beautiful shrub that really wants to be a tree. I grow the dark leaved varieties because they're so gorgeous, and with those fantastic umbels of pink flowers that you can make jellies out of or cordials out of, whether it's the flowers or the berries, it really is worthy of any garden. But in spring you may find, if you're like me and have bought a lot of Sambucus, that you've a lot of pruning to do. Now, this is a bush that you can prune just like the Buddleia. If you want, you can cut this baby right to the ground and it will grow back. I know this from experience because there have been Sambucus that I wanted to get rid of in the garden, and I've cut them to the ground and they come back. I have a video somewhere on my channel about rejuvenative pruning of Sambucus, but we're not doing that this year. We're just doing the regular pruning, which involves reducing the stems by about a third. Always cut to some leaves, and you will see leaves already sprouting on your Sambucus even in February. If you can't find leaves and you really want to cut that branch, then cut just above a knuckle like we did with the Buddleia. Remove any crossing branches or any that have decided to grow horizontally, because they're just going to interfere with the branches that are going upwards. Now, you may find that you don't get around to pruning your Sambucus every year like you should. You may find that you want to let it grow into a big tree, or you may find that you haven't done it in 2 years and now you have to do the old rejuvenating pruning again, and that will probably require a chainsaw because the branches and the stems do get very thick. But it is a lovely bush and worthy of any garden. And that brings me to the end of this video on early spring pruning. I hope you found it useful. Don't forget to look out for the links I put through the video to the more comprehensive pruning videos I've made for each of the trees or bushes that I dealt with today. I'll also put them in the video description down below. Thank you as always for watching, and I will see you on the next video. Bye! Sorry.
I'm sorry, to scare you.
Jesus Christ. Oh, we got that in video as well.